I think I just start with, first of all, thanks to everybody who participated, contributed, came here kind of on short distances, but sometimes also very long trajectories. And so may it be by geography, may it be by content, but I think what our main goal was really bringing very different conversations together from different fields, different disciplines, different geographies. And what we want to do here now is to gather some thoughts about the themes of the conference, what stood out to you, what kind of insights did you gather from kind of being exposed to normally kind of unfamiliar content, unfamiliar kind of methodology, and unfamiliar origin. And before I open up the floor, I just want to say once again, thanks to Martha, Maya, Reagan, and the whole team. Yeah, so that's really important because otherwise we would not have had such a smooth kind of operation. Yeah, thank you so much, really.
I want to thank Roger, Timothy, Jason from Dornsife Media Services, and Julio. Shout out to Julio.
So what I think we should really think about is themes, things, but also think about what you take away. And one aspect I want to just plant as a seed, we can kind of keep this a little bit for later, but I also want to think about, since our aim was to bring people together and kind of start a conversation, we don't want this conversation to end with this conference. So there is a goal that we think about ways how we can sustain the conversation over the kind of the next years, may it be individually, collectively, different groups, but we are also really appreciating thoughts about what could be kind of ways to do it, to do this. So, okay, then I would say, did I forget anything? Maybe one of the co-organizers wants to chime in, Dorota or Lorena. Where are you? There.
Oh, I just want to make a comment. So I know we've got a lot of countries represented here, but I went through the program yesterday and I wrote down all the Indigenous nations that were represented throughout the duration of the conference, and there's 29, which is fabulous.
And can I add to this? I felt really good when Keisha asked us to stand up as non-native, and we were in the minority. So this was really this was actually what we wanted. Yeah. But I interrupted you. Do you want to say something else?
No, I just wanted to. I felt really good about that, and I think it's something that's unique about this conference too. I think there's a shift happening in academic institutions where we're starting to see how many Indigenous scholars there are now actively engaging in our own research and telling our own stories. And I've been to a number of conferences in my career, and the only ones that I've seen the numbers like this are when they're focused on Native American scholars or Indigenous scholars. So yeah, I felt really good when I was writing down all the names and realized how many Indigenous scholars there have been at this conference. So it was just a point that I wanted to share, that's all.
Dorota?
I have, you need the microphone, Zoom can't hear you speaking. Thank you. I have some kind of first
There are buttons, okay. I have kind of more detailed thoughts, which I can sort of say later, but again, that kind of exchange for me was a very kind of active practice of, I don't know, humility as a scholar. And now I'm really actively thinking how a dialogue can take place. From my perspective, I think of myself as a kind of comparative scholar of the Holocaust, and this conference, I think, has profoundly shifted my understanding of what comparisons are, and how perhaps I have to rethink the very concept, though that was very insightful. What really stood out to me as, again, kind of comparative Holocaust or comparative genocide scholar is the language that we've been using. And a lot of people not liking certain formulations, like settler colonialism, or even the terminology between Native American and Indigenous. So I've been just really listening and remembering, who prefers what labels and how. So I am all labels, no, that's not a good word. Kind of terms to either self-identify or address another group. So that's what I'm kind of now also trying to think through, how we can use those words and communicate through them. I don't have an answer, but I know that I have been using certain categories, perhaps unthoughtfully, until I heard it in this context. So maybe I will just stop there. I have some other thoughts, but I will pass it on.
Thank you. That's a really important issue that you brought up. And because in Australia we don't really like the term Indigenous. It's, there's many distinct groups in Australia, but Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander is the original terminology. And then they started using the word Indigenous, so they didn't have to write Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander or use the acronym, which some people find offensive. But I personally prefer the word Guri or Kuri. I'm not sure if many of you are familiar with that. So different states refer to themselves differently. So Kuri or Guri in New South Wales and Kuri in Victoria, Murray in Queensland, Noongar in Western Australia, and so forth. So maybe that's something that we could look at. People are putting their pronouns on their emails and things like that. So maybe that's something we could look at, asking people to identify the words that they'd like to be, terminology that they'd like to be referred to, I think is really important. Yeah. You've got something to say on that?
I always identify as Aboriginal. The problem in Australia and in some places, Irish people are saying, I am Indigenous, and they are now getting the benefits of being Indigenous. So, and that's, look, it's a government thing that happens, and it's their way of pushing black fellas to be fringe dwellers. So, we'll give them a shop. They are Indigenous, and they could come from Iran or Iraq, but they use that word. And as I said at the opening, this also interferes with your health. You cannot identify if you have a genetic disease by stealing identity. And another thing I'd like to see happen here, as you're all great academics, and we're all getting, some of us are getting older.
We're all getting older.
But I'd like to see that closing the gap more on the young people. To be able to say, like you, maybe a grandmother, take on some young people within a circle and be that, to connect to them. So over there in Alice Springs we have 52 dialects. The police in Alice Springs can't understand the language, so they just lock them up anyway. So it's about understanding the language, closing the gap, and identity to do with health. That's what I think. I'm going to hand it around. Yes.
Okay. Well, I would like to very much thank the organizers for this great conference. As I was telling them at the break, I think the sessions were wonderfully thinked, so we could talk and relate and understand and compare many things. And well, I don't have a critique to do or a suggestion to do it better. I think you did it great, and well, I'm very thankful for that, and I learned a lot, so I think that's very important.
Thank you. Thank you, Marta. Thank you, Wolf, and Regan, and everybody who helped at this conference. It was very important for us to share our experience, our work together, and well, I hope see you again somewhere.
Thank you. This is actually my first meeting here. I'm part of NASA, the Native American Student Assembly, and I'm the advocacy liaison. And even though I haven't been able to come to these meetings, I've been keeping up with it, like looking online, seeing what's being read, etc. And I really do think that this is a great conference. Like, we have people from Australia, North America, I'm Indigenous to Central America, and I never thought about the Aboriginal distinction and them not liking it. So thank you for talking about that. I feel like there are so many different ways to be Indigenous. There's not one way to look Indigenous. Like, look around the room, we all look so different, but I still think that's very beautiful. And we can come together, especially in academia, when we're not represented. Like, I'm a Native, yes, I am Native, but I'm a narrative studies major, and I can count on my hand the amount of times, like, there have been Indigenous scholars and stuff like that. So I'm very happy that we've all come here today.
Greetings, everybody. I attended this event since the first evening. Well, that's Saturday night, and I kept coming back ever since. And what I really like to share is that I'm basically a student, as I'm always will be a student, and I used to live not far from here. I attend various events here in USC in the past. Usually when I'm in town visiting my grandparents, I bi-coastal. I also lived in New York as well. And what I've learned since the first day is not only the understanding and or forgiveness of the mistakes that's been taking place, not only to our communities or ourselves, but also mistakes that the world pretty much suffered for years. And we're now in the 2020s addressing human rights for Indigenous communities, women, children, et cetera, and we're now able to address the injusticeness of evil people, and this is a ongoing movement that needs to continue, because all of us needs to be educated to address and progress as human beings, So that's my reflection, and I'm also the diaspora of Blackfoot Nation, also Cherokee on my mother's side, and it also gives me it makes me open my heart to everybody that attend this event and be able to be able to understand each other, like as human beings and so forth. And education is so important. So I have to say thank you so much for all of you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you everybody for attending and helping us come together. I just want to say thanks for staying the course and fulfilling your mission. I think it's great because many other opportunities and institutions and people were unable to come back from a lot of what we've all been through. So I appreciate you hanging in there and supporting people during tough times, and we're still in some very tough times. So the one thing that I wanted to mention and advocate for is that everything that we have talked about, myself included, should include an aspect of and a focus on our health and our healing, because Native peoples bear the brunt of not only surviving all of this and waking other people up, but also are doing a lot of the work on their own with respect to their communities, their lands, their history, their education. And so it does take other people to support Native people with what they're doing. So there's, and this is a long process, right? All of this has taken so long to get to this point. It's going to take just as long to undo, to heal, to come back from. But I think it's possible. I see the people here. I see the potential. And so I think if we just keep focusing on these bigger, relevant, connective ideas, such as education, the land, health, healing, these kinds of arenas where we can collaborate and communicate, I think we'll find ourselves in better positions to support each other because we're working on those same levels. So I appreciate hearing and learning from each of you from your respective communities and struggles.
Thank you. And I just want to share a comment from the chat from Rosalba Champi. My apologies, Rosalba, if I'm mispronouncing that. I'm sure I am. And she requests that we please make the recordings as widely available as possible, not just to academic institutions. And this raises a point that Wolf and I have talked a lot about the afterlife of the conference and the ways in which we do hope that the recordings of the sessions travel and continue to inform and illuminate these topics. And just related to that, I'm going to follow a piece of advice from Elder Wendy Phillips. Please sign your release forms that you will find in your folders and return them to me or Maya or Reagan. And if you don't, if you forgot your folder today, I'll follow up with an electronic version that you can sign. And I just want to thank everybody. I think for me, the conference has redefined some of what I would think about as success of a conference. You know, I'm very focused on, like, do people know about it? Are they coming? How many people are in the room? And some of the sessions, there were less people in the room than I might have hoped for originally. But I have no doubt that it was very meaningful for the people who were in the room. And so that is more important, you know, sort of like what Kat and Danielle were talking about how the art itself, the process was even more important than the exhibition itself. And I think I relate to that in lots of ways. And Wolf mentioned the exercise that Keisha did where there were more Indigenous people in the room than non-Indigenous. That was another moment where I was like, there have been so many moments where, you know, we've had years of planning this and we've had lots of expectations and hopes, and I am not exaggerating when I say that my hopes and expectations were exceeded many, many times throughout these days. And so I thank all of you for the role that you played in that. And I also want to say, as lovely as the praise circle has been, and I will just lie on my back in the middle if I feel like it and just absorb all the praise. But I also want to invite you to, if you want to share about the themes of the conference that stood out to you the most, or the insights that you had that will stay with you. I mean, I know I had many astonishing moments where I was like, I never heard about that. I'm a comparative genocide studies scholar. I had no idea. And there were many presentations where I felt this idea, we postponed it several times because we wanted to be in person to make these connections and have these conversations. And there were many times again in the conference where I was like, this is it. This is why we did it. And I just want to share the joy. I actually made a list of adjectives that I hung up on my fridge before the conference started because I had so much anticipation. There were things like calm, nourished, open, curious. And I put joyful on there, and I felt that joy, and I just thank each and every one of you for contributing to that.
That's a tough act to follow. I'd first of all just to thank the organizers. I was maybe a little more party to watching you work than other folks, and I know how much thought you put into this and care, and I'm grateful. Thank you. Thank you. I think there was a lot of very important work shared at this conference, and I would love to see that work presented on other stages to other audiences so that more academics and more members of the public can learn the things that you have taught me during these last few days together. So I just want to make a couple of practical suggestions about some of the places where we might come together again as individual presenters, maybe on panels. We can network with each other. I will just say that I would be very happy to chair or comment on panels that any of you decide to assemble. One conference that is coming up next summer is the International Association of Genocide Scholars, which will meet in July in Barcelona, in Catalonia, in Spain. And the last time that it happened, it was remote, but this time it will be in person. But you might also consider the International Network of Genocide Scholars, which also has regular conferences and workshops. And while we're thinking of conferences, I think it's also really important that people present their work in their own national conference venues, because it's very important that people in the United States learn about genocide and Native American people, whether it's a regional conference or a national conference. Please think about taking your work on the road and sharing everything that you've gathered, everything that you've thought about, the data you've recovered, the methodological interventions that you've shared with us. Take it to other folks as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I must say that I'm very impressed by the scholarship. Everything has been so wonderful, the academic side of this. But beyond that, I would say just having so many Indigenous folks here was really what made it, for me, an amazing experience. To see so many generations represented. We have our undergraduates, we have graduate students, and we have academic scholars, PhDs, masters. And what was especially great for me was the laughter. We had, this is a very heavy subject, this is a very heavy topic, but we still find times to laugh. And I think that was something that's very powerful in our communities. We love to laugh, we're laughing people. I heard many anti-laughs, And to me, I just felt like I was here with my family. Like I wasn't just here with a community of scholars. I was here with my family. And so I said on Sunday that my heart is full, but since then I think my heart is overflowing. And so I thank you all for being present and for not only sharing knowledge, but also just sharing humanity. I think that we are on to something here, that there's a bright path forward for all of us, and that from here, we're really leading the way. We're all relatives, and so I just thank you all so much. Chimigwich.
I'll just keep them both, I guess. I guess I just want to share a couple of things. I feel a lot of gratitude right now for the relationships that have been formed at the conference, the relationships that I personally have formulated, but also seeing people connect. Like I've seen so many people after panels sharing email addresses because they want to collaborate or get to know each other better or share their work. And so I feel a lot of gratitude that this conference has provided that opportunity for sharing and hopefully future collaborative work. And I guess the second thing that I just want to share is that I learned something from every presentation, something new that I didn't know before. And I felt like I started like a journey with the elders and the students on the first night. And that there was this story that was told throughout the conference that kind of built on each other. And so when I'm coming out at the other end, what I found today was really fascinating is that there was a lot of processes of engagement and also regenerating some old knowledge, some old teachings and leadership that have been trying to advance education in different ways. And I've got a lot of takeaways, but the one that I think that I want to share is what Martha mentioned about the process of the process is what's important often, and not always the end product, right? I do hope that there is an end product and that it continues to evolve amongst all of us. But I guess the one word that kept popping up for me is engagement. And engagement can mean a number of things, right? Engagement can mean us sharing information with one another. Engagement can be asking questions. Engagement can be future collaborations, but engagement with Indigenous peoples. And I feel like we've expanded the engagement on genocide. We're starting to engage the scholarship and the discussions around that. Because when I go home, I teach about the residential school history, and I give lots of talks on that. But very few times did I engage that topic under the theme of genocide. And I think that that's a big takeaway for me, is to think about it in that context. So even from my classes to the scholarship, but also within Indigenous communities and working with youth to get them to see the connections. Because I think what that does is that it broadens the scope of how we see ourselves, the types of issues that we teach. And there is such a power in not feeling so alone. So that is, I think, my big takeaway is the feeling that there are a number of Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples looking at this scholarship from a number of different ways. So I just want to thank all of you for sharing your knowledge and your whole being, like you were here, body, mind, and spirit. intellectually connecting with people, and you know, laughing and sharing tears too. So miigwech.
Yeah, I think I could sit here for 20 minutes and talk about so many things. I know you have all seen me kind of in the back doing stuff as everything's going on, but to be here for the entirety of the conference has been just so great. And I'm so thankful that I was able to make all of these different panels about different things, some in which I had a big interest in, some of which I mean, if I'm being honest, I just didn't really, I don't want to say I didn't really care about, but then once it was presented in front of me, I was like, oh, wow, like, this is huge, this is important. But I think the intersectionality of everything has been really great this week, and not only just between topics, but between individuals that we've had here. There was a lot of like just surreal moments of like when Assembly Member Ramos, we were sitting eating lunch, and then he's like, oh, Ben Madley, like I love his work, like I need to go say hi. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And then like I told Kim Tallberry yesterday that I have shared her work with my whole Native family, and they've all read it and loved it, and it was really great for them to like just engage in. And so many other things like the USC and UCLA kind of collaborations that we've had too. But yeah, that has all been really great. But I would also just kind of second what Jer said and mention that I'm very, very thankful for all of the like happy moments that we've had, despite this being a conference about genocide, and obviously it's about much more than that. But the memories that were made the entire day that Assembly Member Ramos was here, and I got to take him on a tour and stuff of campus, and then literally this morning when Jer and I and some others were talking and laughing about weird beer laws, like, and I don't know, a lot of other things that we have just joked about, even like calling out USC alum today by UCLA alum. But yeah, there's been like so many just funny moments that have been, as much as I'm going to take away all of the academic aspects of this conference, I think that the personal relationships that have been started here are really what tied the bow on the conference. And yeah, I just think about like very intimate moments that have happened. Wendy sang to Martha and I, and some others after the movie the other night, and it was just perfect timing, and it was great. Assembly Member Ramos, after he did his song here as an opening, and then we went to the Native American Pacifica Lounge after with some students, he was able to sing another song, and it was closing, and afterwards he was like, I feel like that was like meant to be. I feel like I was able to close it perfectly. Just so many moments like that that I'm like just going to be forever grateful for. And yeah, again, I could sit here and talk for so long, but yeah, just thank you all for being here. I know, unfortunately, a lot of people had to fly out today or yesterday, so they're not able to be here, but hopefully they'll see this portion on Zoom. But yeah, every single intentional engagement and effort that's been put into the conference by not only the people putting it on, which of course, should not be ignored, but also by just attending and being here and listening, even if you're in the back corner for 2 minutes, it doesn't matter. It's so important. So thank you for having me and being so great to me, and looking forward to good things in the future.
So unfortunately, I haven't been to attend all of the days because I had classes and other things going on, but being here today was really inspiring to see all of these Native scholars, and especially meeting Assemblymember Ramos. It's just very encouraging and just very nice to see, like, as an undergrad, like, just inspiring to see, like, there's all these opportunities out here for you. Like, these people have done it, so you can do it. So yeah, I would just say thank you for everyone for coming out, and I'm so grateful to be able to experience this. So
thank you so much, everybody. I've really enjoyed the conference. It is inspiring, and I've especially appreciated that it's accessible, and it is also really personal. I've loved seeing photos of people's families and ancestors, and also, memories, facts, not just, sharing this knowledge that I think is so meaningful has been great for me, especially since I feel that I don't know as much of other Indigenous groups, yet alone, my own Zapoteco affiliation is something that I'm continuing to learn. And I think if I were to have a vision for how to make, this conference, I don't know if it would say bigger or necessarily, I wouldn't use the word better, but like perhaps, visionary is, I'm thinking about the Indigenous diasporic high school students around South Central LA, and I'm wondering how it's possible, if it is possible, to partner up with public schools, high school students, to bring them here and have them hear, Indigenous scholars, right? That would be great, and I think there's a lot. So I'm wondering how that could be worked up in the future for years to come, because there's also, I know, I think it's Justin, right? Sorry, I'm just, is it Joshua? Sorry. Joshua, I don't know if also, if there has to be connections with also probably tribal schools, community colleges too, but I'm just wondering how those connections might be bridged for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. It's great to be here. I came because I was invited by Dorota and Lorena, and I don't really do anything anymore that's strategic for my career because I'm a full professor. Whatever. I do it because I want to have relationships with people, and that's why I say yes to things. So I guess it's a relational approach. I will say that I've been teaching Article 2 of the Convention on Genocide for probably 10 years now to my students, and I always, in particular units, I'll contextualize things. I'll say, look how this is, a manifestation of this particular definition of genocide. And it's, they're always surprised. And a couple of years ago in CBC, there was a person who's a Canadian, who had worked in some of the conversations in the aftermath of the Rwandan genocide. And so this guy's intimately familiar with genocide stuff. And he said that what happened in Canada does not meet that definition. Dude needs to read. I mean, come on. So I think that's why I was happy to see the normalization of, all you have to do is read the definition and know your history, and you can see that this is the case, right? And I think it's really important to normalize this in the Americas. It doesn't have to look like what the European Holocaust looked like, which I understand had a definitive beginning and ending. And so this is really different, right? And I think understanding the simultaneous elimination of Indigenous peoples and non-human beings, because the definition of indigeneity is tied to being co-constituted in a place with particular other relatives that are not all human. And we can't lose sight of that, which is why that definition of indigenous doesn't always work. I think it becomes too expansive, and I do think it's going to have a limited shelf life. It's great for organizing and sharing lessons of decolonization and lessons of revitalization and all of that. It's great for political organizing, but it has its limitations, and I think we should remember that when we use that word. What are the limitations, and when is it losing too much specificity? And I understand the desire to want to go back to more specific kinds of people-based terminologies. I'm seeing a lot of pushback in Indigenous community in both the US and Canada against the term Indigenous, and we see the downside of it in the way that it's been used in this really kind of, I'll use a technical term, wishy-washy way in the academy in particular. So anyway, I've been having a lot of thoughts here. It's been really great to hear everybody's work. Most of the people who I hadn't heard before because I'm not in your areas, so thank you.
Thank you. I'm a visiting scholar from Germany here at the Center for Genocide Research, and I'm so thankful that this conference took place while I'm here. I learned so much, and I take so much back, so much to think about. And I focus on Nazi Germany and the Holocaust in my research, and there is a heated debate going on in Germany at the moment about the place of the Holocaust in the national memory culture and in relation to other mass atrocities, to other genocides. And listening to all the presentations and discussion, I realized not just how Eurocentric the discussion in Germany is, but how German-centric it really is. And so I definitely take so much back and try to get it back into the debate and in my teaching. So yeah, thank you very much.
Hi, thank you so much for putting this conference together. I know you keep hearing it, and I know that's not quite what you want to hear anymore. Although we do want to see you lay on your back, and if you want to do that while we're here, I mean, someone would take a picture and it would be live streamed. So I was going to say what Kim said, and Kim said it quite well. So I won't. Well, I will say it again because it should be underscored. I was a little bit surprised when I got the invitation about this because it's still controversial in our field to talk about genocide, and it's also extremely unusual to see genocide centers be paying attention to what we do. So in both ways, I was quite surprised when I got the invitation. And it's been really incredible to be here for that reason, but also that you've kind of pushed back on what an academic conference does. I really enjoyed being in the same space rather than in multiple spaces spread out, which is the norm at a conference. I also enjoyed not having to choose what I was going to listen to. And I think that really impacted our social relations here because we were all drawing on the same archive of talks and knowledge. Although we all came here with different knowledge bases, we all saw the same talks. And so that can really disrupt conversation normally at academic conferences. So this has just been, amazing. And I would just like to agree with what everybody said about not just the content of the conference, but the feeling that was created and the relationships that were created. So thank you, everybody. I've so enjoyed being here with you.
Thank you, Tansy. I have a few points to make. This has been one of the best conferences I've gone to in years. I'm really, really happy just about how it came together, how it's been constituted, lots of Indigenous folks. I felt like you managed to create a lot of cultural safety, and I know we were just invited to go out in the mainstream and present, but I also feel that that's risky for us sometimes, and so I appreciate what's been created here, and I'm really happy to keep exploring this label of genocide and how it relates to our work, and also find ways to, bring in the subtitles of, famicide, ecocide, and matricide, as in Mother Earth. And so maybe I'll be thinking about how to weave those together in a way that makes sense, or a creation story or something meaningful. Yeah, and there's a few other things I wanted to say. Oh, I'm really happy to connect with others who are studying the violence against Indigenous women, missing and murdered women and children. And I hope that we can create a little subgroup to support each other, because even the work that Corinne did, they got so much backlash. And whenever you talk about this topic in the mainstream, you're often challenged or accused of catastrophizing or lying or whatever. So I think we really need to support each other. And I would love to come back together again sometime. And if I had a suggestion, it would be that we should have a ceremony, an Indigenous ceremony together. So thank you for all your work in organizing, Dorota, Martha. Thank you.
So unfortunately, this is my first time at the conference. I was not able to come earlier. Professor Gruner encouraged, I'm in one of his classes and he encouraged us to come, but also Jer happens to be my TA for another class that I take. So that's just kind of a funny coincidence and a reminder that I can have these kind of conversations with both of them. But in a way, even though I wasn't able to hear any of these conversations take place, it's sort of nice coming at the end and hearing how everyone has taken away something different from this conference and touched people very differently. And I've also picked up some key terms, ideas that I think I'm going to stick with, and I'm really happy. Though I wish I had been in person to engage with the conversations, I'm happy to go back and watch the Zoom recordings and take note of those words that yeah.
All right. Unfortunately, I was also not able to make it to many of the events and conversations, but it sounds like just listening to all of you that there were some really groundbreaking discussions going on, and this was a really important space to talk about issues that aren't really addressed in academia, and definitely one of those, I think, is the lack of research into classifying Indigenous issues as genocidal issues. And I think, thinking about that and doing more research, you can reveal some serious ramifications and ideas on how we move forward. But yeah, it sounds like this was a great experience, a great place, and I hope future events take place.
Now I have two. Okay. First of all, these are two students in my Resistance to Genocide class, which I currently teach. So that's how they came here, because I promoted the conference. Yeah. But they all have classes, and so there's a lot to do. So we understand. But this brings me to that I wanted to do what I did in the beginning. I wanted to just give a shout out to the person who inspired this conference again, Alexandra Klinger, who was also an undergraduate at the University of Minnesota, who kind of my encounter with her actually created the idea for this conference. And I think I'm really, and I'm a little bit emotional, I think to provide a safe space for these discussions, I think is really important, and I think I was not aware how important, and I think this is what I take away from this. And so I'm really grateful, and I also learned a lot, and I thought I know a lot already because I teach, let's say, Native American history in my comparative genocide class. I teach colonial Spanish mass violence, and so I thought I knew a lot, but I see that it's really important to bring genocide studies and Indigenous studies together because there are different perspectives and certain emphasis which each side has, which are important for each side, but which we really also have to balance in a way. And this brings me to the point with the Indigenous, with the terms we discussed. And we thought long and hard how to call the conference. And we were aware of the problem that Indigenous is in North America not the appropriate word. But since our aim was to bring together Indigenous scholars or Native scholars from Australia, from Hawaii, from Latin America, the only term we could come up who could combine all of this was Indigenous, just as an explanation, as a background to know. And we discussed this even with the students. We asked them for advice and said, what are you thinking about? Can we use this term? Is this appropriate? So we also are very thankful for the Native American Student Assembly, when we got contact and how engaged and motivated they were and motivating us. And so this was really wonderful. And I thought that they opened the conference was really very appropriate. And to think about a little bit about the future, what I think, I like Ben's idea that and also what Katie said, that one should think about groups coming together and maybe do group work, or then also go out with the results of the work to kind of organize panels at conferences. And one practical idea is the Center for Advanced Genocide Research will host one of the big international genocide organizations in 2024. That means in 2 years. So that's the International Network of Genocide Scholars. So I think, and I actually sold a little bit Los Angeles in a way to say, we have so many survivor communities of genocides here. And I told them it is not only when I was when we announced that this comes to USC, it's not only about the Armenian community, the Jewish community, the Cambodian community, the Guatemalan community in LA. It's also about the hidden Native community. And I think I would like to emphasize this in a way and use, again, my privilege to have resources and to provide space that we maybe use the opportunity to organize 2 or 3 panels at this conference in 2024. And the other thing is, we originally planned to do this as part 1. And hold on. Part 2 was actually supposed to be Asia and Africa, indigenous communities in Asia and Africa. But now I'm kind of thinking, I was asked already on the second day, is there a follow-up conference, right? So now I'm very conflicted, because on the one hand, I really want to also give the opportunity to indigenous scholars from Asia and Africa, but then I also think, since I'm asked this, how can we sustain this conversation? And so now I'm thinking, should we do a part 2 of this conference? So that's a question where you might get feedback now, but you can also send us emails later what you think about this, if this is something what might be of interest. And then I wanted to say also about sustainability. It's not just about communication, dialogue, conversation. I think it's also about resources. And one of the resources which I think needs to be established are indigenous narratives. And so I'm coming from the kind of thinking about this because, as you know, we have the Shore Foundation here at USC with the Visual History Archive. And one of the, let's say one part of the collection are the narratives of genocide survivors, Mayan genocide survivors from Guatemala. And my personal concern is that in Guatemala there were conducted 600 interviews, but only 30 are now available and accessible because they are digitized and indexed. So we have 600 actually here on campus, but they are not accessible. That's one thing. So I want to work on kind of to make all of these 600 interviews with Mayan survivors accessible. But then on the other hand, I thought Lorena and I talked about the interviews which were conducted in Canada for the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. So these are also voices which need to be kind of accessible for education and research. They should not be just having been done for a certain purpose and then they are there somewhere in an archive and nobody is looking at them, nobody is listening to them, nobody is watching them. So I think one other thing is to think about sustainability in the way of creating archives of indigenous voices. And I mentioned these 2 existing archives only actually to think about maybe to inspire to create other archives. Yeah, for example, of Mixtec narratives, yeah, in Mexico, or for example in Australia, of Aborigines voices. I don't know if they exist already. Maybe they are, but then it's also a question if they exist, how we are doing. Yeah, bye. Thank you so much for everything. Yeah. If they exist, how do we make this known? Yeah. How do we get people access to them? So I think this could be another way of sustainable to make our conversations sustainable.
I also have to catch a flight 5 minutes ago, so I'll make this very quick. First, I want to kind of bring it back to what Sissoko Duta talked about on Sunday about breaking down the ivory tower. And I think one of the things that I really have enjoyed is just this space here, where we can hear about the impact this conversation or this conference has had on especially emerging scholars, undergraduate students, because I think we think about like us as academic output, but like these conversations have very real impact. And I think that's really something that we need to take a second to remember every time we're doing this kind of work. And then second, the thing that is really empowering is to hear the conversations that are going on and everything circling back to doing something outside of academia. Everyone's work is so community focused and about empowering people or amplifying voices. They're doing something, whether it be for us as in K through 12 education or working in our communities or doing something. It's really, really exciting. And so for me, who doesn't traditionally do like academic output, to see everyone else have that view is really, really exciting. And I think back to the conference that Wolf has talked about a little bit about from 2017 at the University of Minnesota. And for me, up until that point, it was the most impactful conference that I had been a part of. It was actually one of the first that I had helped organize. And for me, it really changed in how I think about the work that we're doing as a university and the Center for Holocaust and Genocide Studies. But now I'm thinking that this is really now that transformative way of thinking of how we do our work and how, as a center, that we can do our mission to promote education and awareness. And so I'm really excited to see then what comes out of this conference to spawn more work to continue that chart, right? And it should not be 5 years from now, but something from that, I think it'll be really, really cool. So I'm really excited and feel like, get back to the Minneapolis, really excited about to see what comes from all of you.
This conference has really been eye-opening for me, and I'm just happy to have found a place where I can also fit my research. And so it, kind of just listening to everyone, everybody was my teacher as well, and learning from everyone, but also providing that positionality space within the topic and research. So that was really good to see and see what everyone else is doing. And also, just the concepts and the frameworks and, so forth, the language, that was really helpful. So I really, I felt like it was intimate, and it was, even though the topic was heavy, it was yet comforting in some ways. I don't know, it's really kind of in a strange way, I think. So, so I really appreciate being here, and thank you for teaching me, and I wish everyone happy travels and safe travels. Okay, thank you. I think I really have to go now.
Right. I probably also have a lot to say, but I think first of all, I want to say that I'm super grateful for being here. I have not found this conference. This conference has found me. I did not plan to come here. I was told about this conference, and now I'm here, and I spend all of the full days learning, because this is what I did here. I listened and I learned so much. I am amazed, I'm stunned by this, by every single one of you, for telling your stories, for sharing your research, for showing me that academia is not just numbers. Academia is not just mere words. Academia is people. And academia is culture, and academia is background and everything. I mean, I don't believe in the clean hand science approach anyway, but really this, I also want to thank for the people who really, showed the pictures of their families and shared personal stories. It really shows that, academia is more. And for me as I'm finishing my master studies right now, so I'm not a full-grown scholar, not yet, getting there hopefully. It inspires me and it motivates me to listen to all of you. Talking about your suggestion and also the invitation to share ideas about future conversations and panels, because I have been to some conferences that covered the inter-American field, and even though, Latin American countries have also been represented here, I would maybe put the idea into the room that it opens up so many possibilities if there's the possibility to do simultaneous translations, because of course we have been talking about languages and language as, a complicated thing, also in academia. But I think there is so much potential if people can share their work from countries, from regions of the world where research is not conducted in English, because this is it is excluding people. And I think it would be a great deal if there would be the possibility to have simultaneous translations, either, I don't know, to Spanish or to some, if you have the plan to do Africa and Asia also. I guess that must be done anyways, probably, if you don't only want to have English-speaking scholars here. Yeah, and it would make the whole deal more inclusive and would be an add-on. But yeah, overall, thank you so much for having me, for sharing.
Hello, everyone. My name is Terrell. I'm a sophomore here. I'm from Chinle on the Navajo Reservation. I also serve on the NASA e-board. And I would like to first thank Wolf for inviting us. I remember when he came out to our booth during, what was it? Involvement Fair. And he actually came out to our booth and invited us. So thank you, Wolf. And it seems like it has an impact. I was not here, and this is my first time here. And I'd like to thank Reagan, given what she said, it seems like you've had an impact on us. So thank you. I'd like to thank everyone here to all the work you do to increase Indigenous education awareness. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say, so thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Natalie. I'm sorry I wasn't here either due to classes. I'm from the Choctaw Tribe of Oklahoma. I'm a part of NASA as the co-executive director. So I just want to thank everyone for being here and for just rightfully taking up space in this predominantly white institution and just talking about our history that has become erased. I think it's really important for all the work you guys are doing. I just want to say thank you. And yes, I know Wolf mentioned that there's a possibility of doing a part 2, and I really hope that does happen. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Well, so for those who don't know, my name is Wendy Phillips, and I'm the elder in residence for Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario, Canada. And I'm also the elder for many other institutions up in our area. So, and one of the major pieces I also do is I do a lot of research. So I help a lot of students, a lot of faculty, a lot of community-based projects and organizations to deliver all these different areas. So because of that, there's just so many areas I truthfully work in. So coming here, it was great to hear all the different themes and all the different projects, and it was really good. The one thing I had agreed with what Kathy has said is, ceremony. I really think that, you know, for us beginning in such a good way has when we do any gatherings and when things are started in a good way, that it tends to bring what we call chibai together. It brings our spirits together, and that's the purpose of it. And in our closings as well, that we are like as a ceremonial leader, as a spiritual leader, like that is one of my duties, is to ensure when things are open, things are also closed. So that's something that you know, when we come together as human beings, we all have ancestors that usually come with us, or helpers, or other beings that may come with us. So, and it's possible, especially with this topic that we've spoken about the last few days, that those ancestors could come. And so that's also what makes this more meaningful as well, is that aspect. So the other themes that, you know, for myself, you know, what I've seen coming up more and more is the intergenerational is a big topic that's coming forward. And then I have to agree with Kathy again as to healing. You know, this is, I think, a journey, whether you're Indigenous or not, that, you know, we are on a healing journey in some type of way. And so I think that as well needs to be recognized as well, that it's just not going to be a Western approach. And that's something I think, like I'll speak for myself as a healer. We don't often get those spaces to share, you know, like our knowledge or our experiences and the work that we do. So for myself, when, you know, because it was actually one of the faculty who presented here that and really encouraged me to you know, to come forward here. So I'm really glad I did, and like I said, just amazing as to, you know, the relationships that are here. So I did want to share one song. It's you know, when we talk about our closings, that I mentioned this in our opening, that we have a concept called the Chibawamin. And this is the energy that emanates from the living. And so every human being, every living species on this planet has this energy that emanates from everything. And this is that relationship that we have to one another. So this is the energy that is unspoken. So it's an energy that everybody knows, and it's used probably the most. And so this is what binds us together. And this is what we talk about when we do our wedding ceremonies. This is what we talk about. The purpose of that ceremony is we bind those chibai, those spirits together, is what we're doing. And when someone dies, our concept is that a part of you dies with them. And that's part of that chibai, that time that you have spent together, however long or short that is. That's that energy that dies with that person. And that's why that saying is that part of you will die with them. So when we gather like this, all of our Chibawamans interact with one another. And this is what binds us together. So this is one of our duties as a ceremonialist, is that we have to separate those now. That we have to tell your minds, your bodies, your spirits, and this energy, the Chibawamin, that they have to remove from one another now. And from this point forward, that we are going to, go back home or go back to work. And this is a time where we're going to become separated. So one of the songs that we sing in our closing, we usually have lots of different traveling songs. Very, very similar to other nations, that when the dead go through their process, the idea is at night we sing, and we're not supposed to stop singing. And so these are one of those songs. We have different songs, like just like our medicines that will make you stop crying. And then there's other songs to make you cry. And so that's some of the things that we do. And this is one of those songs. And if you guys know it, sing along with me. But if you don't, that's okay. But this is, it's actually called Make Them Cry. So at this time, I'd like to say Gitchimigwech to Kenegego Gajik Tot. So this is a being that we describe that has created all things. And we say Gitchimigwech to Minobamatsawin, that we describe that this is this path that we follow. And we follow this path to what we describe as Chibayan King. And this is the land of the souls, the path of the souls. And this is, for us, is the time of year that what we talk about is this path is the closest to us. And that this is why this time of year, usually on October 31st or November 1st, that we do the celebration for the dead. And because this is this time of year when that is the path that is the closest to us. So we say a Gitchi Miigwech to all those ones that have gone ahead of us. And we say a Gitchi Miigwech for every one of yous, for sharing your thoughts, sharing your tears, sharing your feelings, sharing those good words. And we ask the Mashomas, Nokomis, we ask the grandmothers and grandfathers at this time that if there's anything heavy on your heart or your mind or anything that you have heard here, that you don't need to carry that they will carry that for us. So we ask that the Mashomas, Nokomis, that they will take that energy for you so that you can return home safely with good energy and to feel that lightness, that love, so that you can have good health and long life and peace of mind, and that you'll be able to have safe travels no matter how far they are, and that we'll see each other again soon. So, miigwech. Thank you.
I would like just to say thank you in my native language. I just want to say thank you to you in my native language, and I don't know if anyone would like to say it in their language. I'd like to say dziękuję. Dziękuję bardzo.
Why not? Dankeschön, spasiba.
Danke.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, kakino wa gemenak. Oder?
Danke.
Stiosh. I might butcher this, but ahyehe.
Miigwech.
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 Thank you.
Gawangwa.
Thank you.
Seremen.
Gracias.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Parangan yarirang.
I might butcher it too. Go ahead.
I wanted to invite you all to every April at the University of New Mexico out of the Institute of American Indian Education. We host Indigenous Education Research Conference. It's a one-day event. So if you are interested, IA Institute, IAIE.edu will get you towards that Institute of American Indian Education, and you can find out some more information, but I'll pass it on. But we're trying to grow it and get more Indigenous scholars and allies to participate. So.
I mean, nobody could say it better than Wendy, and so I think I'm really grateful, and thanks.